In this series episode of Building a Custom Made Home, the Home Foundation episode, we're going to delve deeper into another topic, and the most crucial and the most important topic when it comes to basement foundation, and that is understanding your weeping tiles. Weeping tiles is the most important integral part in our basement foundation, and especially in our homes, and that are responsible for about 90% of the problems in our basement. Have you ever encountered problems in your basement, such as your leaks, your moisture in your basement? Most of the problems, or about 90% of the problems, stems from a damaged weeping tiles. So in this episode, I'm going to show you and make you guys understand what a weeping tiles is, what it does, and how it protects our basement foundation, especially our foundation walls. Alright guys, let's talk about weeping tiles. So this is what your weeping tiles looks like. As you can see from here, a weeping tiles is comprised of two things. One is the this black looking plastic snaky looking thing here, and the second part is this socks, right? And the purpose of this tube here, as you can see from here, it's got holes from the top, from the side, and from the bottom. And the reason for that is that when the water goes down to your foundation wall, it would go inside this tube here, and it will travel towards the sump pump. And what the sump pump does is that it would collect water away from your foundation wall, and that's how you make your foundation wall as dry as possible, right? And the second component of the sweeping tiles is this socks, right? And the purpose of this socks is that to protect this tube from the soil getting inside this tube here, because when you do your backfill, right, the soil could potentially go inside this tube here, and it could block up this weeping tiles, and water can no longer travel from this tube going to the sump pump. And the reason why I said about 90% of your problem in your basement it stems from this weeping tiles is that because there are many different ways how you can break this weeping tiles. And the most common ways that this weeping tiles gets broken is that when you have an overgrown trees. Like for example, if you plant the trees at the perimeter of your house, and if the roots of the trees gets inside in this tube here, it could potentially block these weeping tiles, and the water could no longer flow from this tube going to the sump pump. Another way how you can disturb or damage these weeping tiles is that when you actually disturb them. For example, if you install a window in the basement, your egress window, what happens is that sometimes you have to dig down the perimeter of your foundation wall, and if you happen to disturb this plastic tube here, like from the excavation to your backfilling of the soil, if this tube gets bent like this, the water could no longer flow properly going to the sump pump, and that's how you got blockage on this tube, and like water will sit here and it will accumulate, and that's how you get flooding inside your basement, right? And so like whatever you do, like you never want to disturb this a tuber, because when we install them, like we install it in such a way that it would flow in the angle going to the sump pump, like for the sump pump to collect all the water like from the perimeter walls, right? And if this gets bent like this, right, water could no longer flow on this tube. And it happens to me like one time when I did like renovation on one of my property. I have a contractor that actually dig the foundation wall, and he happens to disturb this tube here, like whether from the bobcat like trying to excavate the soil, or from the backfilling, because when he was putting the gravel, it's kind of heavy and it would crush like sometimes this tube here, and that's how you got blockage, right? And another thing that you guys have to keep in mind is that if you have a house that was built in like 1960s, 70s, and like early 80s, right, the weeping tiles is not made of plastic. right? It's made of clay or tiles, right? It's much more brittle than this a plastic tube. And if you happen to have that, it's actually connected to your a sewer line, right? Like most of the time, because back in the days we don't have sump pump, right? In the new constructions, that's when we have a sump pump, right? By the code now, we have to have a sump pump. But if your house is built in like a 60s, 70s, 80s, right? The chances are like you don't have the sump pump, and your whipping tiles are most likely are made of clay, and that is much more brittle than this like plastic here. So like, whatever you do, you never want to disturb this whipping tiles, because it could potentially, these are 90% of your flooding in the basement of well stems from these whipping tiles. So this is what it looks like in the actual application, what the whipping tiles looks like. As you can see, the black tube that I just explained to you, it goes from the bottom of the window or the door, and it goes under the foundation to collect water, and the water will go towards the sump pump. And this black membrane that you're seeing against the wall is the extra protections from the water not to get inside the foundation of your wall. Most of the houses that are built in the early days do not have this membrane, and that is why it is much more susceptible to cracks and contractions and expansions and the pressure of the soil. So that's what a weeping tiles does. It collects water away from the foundation of your wall to keep your foundation as dry as possible. So I hope that you guys learned something about weeping tiles, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.